Today I'm going to play a game that might be Ubisoft's only hope, because they didn't mess it up, Anno 117 Pax Romana. As a huge fan of Anno 1800, with nearly 400 hours in that game, I can already say that Pax Romana will be at least as good as Anno 1800. And if by some miracle you don't know what the Anno series is because you've been living in a cave the past few years, let me explain. You usually start your adventure with a beautiful island on the horizon and typically a single ship. As the governor of this island, your task is to grow it from a small village into a powerful metropolis with massive ports. Before long, you'll build another city and another. Your trade routes will connect them all, and it's all in service of dominating your rivals, buying out their islands, or in this installment, conquering them with your legions. So welcome, dear viewer, Lucas here. And this is my beautiful island, given to me by our graciously reigning Caesar to turn into a thriving ancient metropolis. Yes, there will be problems, but you won't have any problems shopping at ENEBA, a safe and trusted partner of this channel. Here you can find keys for Anno 1800 and earlier entries like Anno 2070 or Anno 1404 at great prices. If you want to support my channel, use the links in the description. That way it counts on my account and supports me indirectly. But you're here for the gameplay, so let's get back to it. Just a few quick notes first. This is a beta, so things you see here might change before the final release. The graphics are shown in 60 FPS, but only in HD resolution. 4K is expected at launch. Though honestly, I feel like I'll need more RAM and a better processor to run it smoothly. In my nearly 4-hour gameplay session, I encountered just one bug, and I'll show it to you in this video but without drawing attention to it. Let's see if you spot it yourself. At the start, I sent out my ship to explore the area. Access to new islands is usually useful early on in Anno. Islands differ based on available resources. Okay, I was greeted by Ben Ballion, who will be my advisor. He immediately instructed me to build my palace. Quick note, it doesn't work like the market in Anno 1800. You can place it wherever you want, although it does carry significant importance, as I learned later in the game. Then, as usual, I started laying down roads, always an important early step. I immediately noticed the biggest change in this installment: diagonal building. Okay, maybe it's not the prettiest, but it's diagonal. I built a few houses for my first workers to mine wood from the forest. Well, maybe I won't place the lumberjacks too close to the potential housing area, since I'll probably have to move them anyway. But also no point placing them too far. So I found a nice little forest and did what I usually do in Anno 1800. Next to the warehouse I placed sawmills, so I had my first basic resource covered. No, I lost my ship! Seriously, the first island I discovered, okay, the third island, I ran into pirates super early, and my ship sailed straight into those 3 towers. Oh well, at least it adds a bit of challenge. A moment later, the pirate guy even started talking to me and was polite. He greeted me. I decided to be polite too, despite him sinking my ship. Shortly after, I met Prince Charming, that's what I named him. Come on, tell me they don't look alike. Prince Charming is the player with the yellow island. Anyway, I needed income, so I kept expanding my village, not trying to make it perfect. I noticed the house's appearance changes slightly depending on how you place them. With enough residents, I could unlock new production buildings. And they work a bit differently now. You only need to provide one of the required goods, though you can provide both. Each good impacts the nearby houses differently. In this case, sardines generate more income, and porridge increases the population. So, I built a fishing port and an oat farm a bit away from the town. I also started building my first rhomboid roundabout. Beautiful, right? Still, I was in the red. I needed many more residents to start making money. Something caught fire, I think. Whatever, I'll fix it. Stefan, well, I'm not sure if that's his name, offered to sell me more wood. I bought it at a great price, which earned me a smile from Stefan. The first goods started reaching my citizens, unlocking more buildings. Placing a market positively affected the nearby houses. Same with the tavern. Wow, I can build diagonally now, though it's still a bit janky. Anyway, I added buildings and surrounded them with regular homes. Tunics and hats, were they walking around naked before? Next to the oat field, I built a hemp field. Let's hope no one confuses it with that hemp. Whoa, it's all so beautiful and lovely. What a wonderful village. Kidding aside. Okay, it actually looks really good. As I prepared to explore further, I looked into how to get a new ship. Turns out it works, like in the previous game, you have to find a trader. And I couldn't afford the ship. In Anno, you usually make money fast by building more basic houses. This time though, it wasn't working. The village was growing but still no money, so I resorted to the last resort, the guide explaining the new mechanics. And that's where I learned that supplying goods to citizens works a bit differently now than in the previous Anno games. Workshops that produce goods also sell them now. You can clearly see how big the building's range is. Thanks to that, I finally started making money. My citizens' housing status was upgraded, now I had plebeians, but they had higher living standards. For example, they needed roof tiles. To make them, I needed clay, but that could only be mined near rivers. Oh, and I needed coal too. Sadly, Roman civilization was far behind Slavic technology. They didn't know you could mine coal from the earth. They still burned down forests to get it. So the Romans weren't exactly eco-friendly. Just look at those trees burn. That increased fire risk. Stats also showed my farms were nearing peak productivity. They needed bread too, so I built wheat farms. And a water mill by the river which looked great spinning away. One mill could support 2 farms, so I expanded my fields. I placed a bakery somewhere in the city center. Things were going so well, even Prince Charming asked me for a loan at pretty high interest, but I didn't trust him enough to believe he'd pay it back. I did agree to a trade agreement though. Satisfying my plebeians' basic needs awakened intellectual and spiritual cravings. Although Grammaticus brings back bad memories. For younger viewers, a library is like a physical version of Google search. You'd go there when you needed info. In Anno, the library gives access to a tech tree, divided into economic, civic and military branches. It also generates science points based on nearby citizens. I started with economic research, it seemed the most important. In the temple, I could choose which deity to worship, at least for this island. The stronger the faith on a given island, the better the bonuses. Eventually, it even unlocks special and unique buildings. Some of my citizens began assigning me quests, but I couldn't do them without a ship, so I postponed them. I was earning money, but still not enough. So I kept growing my village, expanding it with more districts, and then a fire broke out. Actually, a pretty big fire. Look at it burn so beautifully. Thankfully, the fire wagons arrived quickly. While half the city burned, I upgraded the other half to plebeian status. Now I had a city that let me unlock amphorae and olive oil, more very flammable goods. As we all know, olive oil is healthy and good for you, but placing the shops to cover enough houses was tricky. Except I had one problem, I couldn't grow olives on this island, which I probably would have known if I remembered to check here. That's why I was forced to purchase a ship. The lady was pleased. My budget not so much. While sailing back toward my home island, I discovered a new friend.
Shall we, friend? If that you be, let us start well together.
He was already able to build the ships and I was a bit jealous. I needed money for investments, so I talked to Dorian and borrowed some funds to avoid sinking deeper into the red. I also decided to complete mission for the plebeians, since in previous Anno games they were quite profitable. I had to investigate the mysterious ghost ship. Of course, the ghost ship turned out to be a trap. It was a pirate vessel looting traders in the area and now it was ready to fight me. I do miss the sound of cannons here. The pirates didn't put up much of a fight and quickly tried to flee. It didn't help them much because shortly after I set their ship on fire and sank it. From the wreckage I rescued a group of castaways. I had to deliver them somewhere through this thick fog. Meanwhile, my friend Cicero contacted me and offered to give me money. And it was a lot of money. Why now? I wouldn't have taken that loan if he'd shown up a little earlier. Shortly after, the castaways were dropped off, improving my relations with the ruler of another island, but it pissed off the pirates and didn't give me any money. So yeah, maybe missions aren't as profitable. Then I sent my ship to continue exploring the area. I needed to find an island where I could produce both olives and resin, and that was proving difficult. I also built my first shipyard, which is a massive building. But if I was going to have a second island, I'd need ships to transport resources. Besides, in the previous game, ships were a great way to earn quick cash. Here it is, the island where I can grow the resources I was missing. So I immediately turned my ship around and sent it there to settle. All while admiring how beautiful the water looks in this game. Since my city still needed to grow, I moved the farm a bit farther away. Luckily, that's easy to do in Anno, though it probably depends on the difficulty level. And since I didn't pay anything for it, I'm clearly playing on the easiest difficulty. Claiming new islands now only requires money. Which is odd, because in every previous installment it also required resources. Speaking of which, I had to go back for some anyway, to gather materials for building on the new island. At the same time, I started building my first ship. OMG, ships now have modules? Yes, ships in Anno now have modules you can add, but they take up cargo space. And honestly, that was a huge surprise for me at the time. On the new island I also had to place a palace and other starting buildings, I delivered more wood to speed up construction. Yes, I also built another small settlement. Someone had to work on my olive plantations and gather resin after all. By the way, those rolling olive groves look absolutely picturesque.
My name is Licia Ma.
Yes, my last opponent is that beautiful Asian lady. For now, all of my opponents are surprisingly friendly. Even though Licia already has her legions, though it would be cool if she had different types of units. As for me, I built another ship, and this one will be used to transport resources between my islands. Trade routes are very intuitive and work just like in Anno 1800. You select the islands the ship will sail between and mark what goods to load and where to unload them. Just like before, it's best to dedicate one slot per good. A moment later, I also started transporting resin. And even though my citizens were finally getting olives, they still started to riot. Probably because there weren't enough basic goods for everyone. Luckily, the statistics system, which I had previously ignored, very quickly showed me where the production gaps were. All I had to do then was fix the demolished buildings and the problem pretty much solved itself. Speaking of problems, the pirates decided to remind me of their existence. I'm outta here, I don't stand a chance against two ships. I also discovered that ships are actually a very profitable business in this game, and selling them is much easier than it used to be. I get 25,000 for one ship and can sell it at any moment. That definitely solved my financial issues, but don't worry, in the final version of the game, this profit is supposed to scale with difficulty level. At least that's the info I have for now. Since I didn't have to worry about money so much anymore, I built a barracks. They're pretty expensive overall, and I could finally spend some time playing around with the day-night settings, which also let me admire my city at night. But more importantly, the sounds of the city change at night too. There's no real way for me to show you that though. The quick day-night cycle transition looks just as good as it did in Anno 1800. Maybe even better actually. Alright, I got a little dreamy there, but time to get to weapons productions. It's a bit more of a complex chain. But I can handle it, it's just the first mine and the first forge. As for military units, which became available at the barracks, I only have access to some very basic ones for now. I'll probably have to unlock the rest somewhere along the military path. Ballistae, I want that. I could also build fortifications, but for now I decided not to. Instead, I focused on upgrading homes, from plebeians to equites. Now it's starting to look like a proper Roman neighborhood. Equites have some strange demands. Wonders? What's that about? A bathhouse is considered a wonder, okay. Equites also give me access to a new building material, cement, and even Caesar himself finally took notice of me. The only problem is, since he noticed me, he now wants to collect taxes, in the form of a voluntary donation. The higher the gift I send, the better my reputation with Caesar. That'll probably tie into some other parts of the game later on. Back to cement, it turned out I needed limestone to produce it. Unfortunately, I only had one source of it on my island, right next to those ancient ruins I hadn't noticed earlier. Since I didn't really know what I could do with them anyway, I demolished part of the ruins to make space for a road connection. Then the equities wanted more cheese and wine, and access to a public well. But for the well to actually have water, I had to connect it via aqueduct from a mountain spring. Yep, I definitely need to bring in water here. Since I was running low on cement, I checked nearby islands to see if I could buy some, but unfortunately they only wanted to buy it from me. I needed that building material in huge amounts, if only to construct this beautiful theater. And even though my people were working hard, I still didn't have enough. I don't know, maybe if I gave them wine via these vineyards, they'd work harder. Alright, I know that's not how it works, but the equities will appreciate the wine anyway. I decided to place the vineyard by the river to take advantage of being able to build fields diagonally. 2 more beehives for the bees. But the winery, I'll place that somewhere central so I can really profit from it. Meanwhile, it turned out that unlocking the next stages of research isn't just about researching, you sometimes have to meet additional conditions. And research doesn't only give passive bonuses. Sometimes it lets you unlock new military units, new buildings, or other gameplay elements. For example, the aqueduct can support my farms, which adds a nice bit of variety to the system. In the meantime, I laid out my aqueduct route, but I was still short on cement to actually build it. I really like the sketch effect for it, it looks great. And even though it's an early stage of the game, it's clear the developers paid a lot of attention to detail. Look, you can even see people bathing here. And now that I've built the aqueduct, it started delivering water. The whole aqueduct looks absolutely stunning. But there was still one very important upgrade ahead of me, paved Roman roads. And also making sure the aqueduct could supply my farms. That's why I had already prepared a spot here to place a cistern. And it'll basically support all my nearby farms. I also foolishly laid out a second aqueduct line. Foolishly, because it turned out you can't cross aqueducts. Or rather, you can't really create junctions. And looking at this stat, I get the impression that the water source should be able to supply up to 10 cisterns, but it just doesn't work. What I really can't wait for though is the full version of the game, when I'll be able to build my fields directly underneath those aqueducts. That's going to look amazing. I also researched new types of ships, but I couldn't build them yet, just like I couldn't declare war, even though I already had an army. Turned out that in this beta version I have, declaring war isn't possible. Normally, you'd unlock it through a tech, but that path is currently blocked. The game also hinted that I had already seen everything that was currently available. So only now did I start closely examining all the buildings. I also upgraded the roads to cobblestone. And the level of detail here is incredible, just look at how it looks. Maybe even better than in Anno 1800. Anno has always been a series where it's not just about how efficiently you build, but also how it all looks and how alive it feels. And so far I think I've managed to create the feel of a small Roman coastal village. And honestly, I'm not worried at all about this aspect of the game. I also peeked at what cities my competitors were building, and I must admit theirs look better than mine. And I probably should have built that palisade, although to be honest I didn't, because I was hoping to reach stone walls eventually. I'd really love to explore the land warfare aspect at some point in the future. And those nighttime fires, and this time it wasn't in my city. Or just the peaceful Roman countryside with all those night sounds. But even though this was my first try, I'm happy with what I achieved. And truthfully, I've got a huge urge to play another campaign and another, because Mythical Albion still lies ahead, which I unfortunately couldn't access in this version. And you, my dear viewers, what did you think of what you saw today? What are your expectations for the Anno series, and should I record more content from this game? And if you're still craving more or aren't quite sold on Anno 1800, check out this video where I become the world's top soap dealer. And let me know, did you spot the bug?